all my years working on St. Charles Avenue. It seemed like a luxury, a privilege, a blessing. As though I had stepped on the other side of the tracks and saw the big mansions, the fancy restaurants, the beautiful lush gardens, the oak trees, the sounds of the soothing streetcars, and the vibrant life. I had passed this hotel now, with stands on the grounds, to which was the old mansion in the Devil's Mouth. Right next to a fast food restaurant it lies right now. Drove by so many times and yet did not know its bloody history and folklore. And these are just some of the many tales that drives me into doing this podcast time after time. The beautiful history and the flavor of these folklores, tales. It's like a gumbo. It's like a fact you'd hear. It's like a wise tale from generations past. It always continues to intrigue. Tonight in the Wicked Webs We Weave podcast, we explore yet another one of these haunted mysteries on St. Charles Avenue, my old stomping grounds. I'm your host, Ryan McKern, and thank you again for joining me on the Wicked Webs We Weave. Madeline Freneau, she haunted the Devil's House at 1319 St. Charles Avenue. Sometime during the 1820s, according to legend, the devil himself took a mistress in New Orleans named Madeline Freneau and built her a luxurious ornate mansion to accommodate her. While the devil provided Freneau with a lavish lifestyle, she ultimately grew bored of him and took on another lover, Alcide Cancienne. The couple did not keep their affair a secret from the devil. So one night, while they were having dinner in the ballroom, Cancienne then told Freneau that the devil had made him an offer. He would give him Miss Freneau along $1,000, and all they had to do in return was adopt the name Mr. and Mrs. L. However, Cancienne said that he refused the deal because he had already grown tired of her. In a fit of rage, Freneau killed Cancienne. Then the devil came in afterward and devoured them both. Before the mansion was torn down in the 1930s, reports claimed that the ghost of Freneau and Cancienne would replay the events of that dinner, and an image of the devil was seen outside the house with blood dripping from its mouth. Prior to moving to St. Charles Avenue, the devil presumably lived in hell, but he made regular visits to the surface. On one of these trips, he met Miss Madeline Freneau and fell head over heels for the young woman. Not much is known about Freneau, but she seemed to have happily reciprocated the Satan's feelings, and the devil decided he needed a new home for his bride and chose New Orleans. It's said that in the 1840s, 1319 St. Charles Avenue was just a plot of land. Then, overnight, a mansion sprang up on the spot. The devil and Freneau moved in that day. Lucifer didn't come to the land of the living alone. Either he brought a whole household's worth of staff, including cooks, maids, and servants. They were said to be small red creatures that would help dress Perot and look after the large house. After some period of time, the thrill of being Satan's beloved faded. Freneau began to look for a new male companion, while her husband was away on business, which would consume with anything pleasant to the other party. While prowling around New Orleans, Freneau met a Creole man named Alcide Cancienne. Cancienne seemed to have no problem with Freneau's marriage arrangement, and the two began a torrid affair. Not surprisingly, Satan learned of his wife's behavior quite quickly. He waited until Cancienne was out and approached him on the street. The devil was described as having red eyes and sharp teeth, though he appeared to be in a human form. After asking if Cancienne knew Freneau, the man originally feigned ignorance, but soon the devil persuaded him to tell the truth. Rather than spite him on the spot, the devil gave Cancienne a way out. The devil gave Cancienne a pile of gold coins, and Cancienne had to leave town and Freneau, and never to return. They had to change their names to Monsieur and Mademoiselle. While this may seem like a pretty sweet deal, Cancienne wasn't impressed. He told the devil he'd consider his offer, but he had already decided that he was done with Freneau and didn't want to go through the effort. After the exchange with Cancienne, the devil left again on business, so Freneau invited Cancienne over for dinner. A bold move considering. The house is staffed by St. Cancienne. Over hors d'oeuvres, Cancienne told mistress about the bizarre encounters he's had with the stranger on the street. For a split moment, Freneau thought he was going to whisk away to a new home in life. But then the other side dropped. Cancienne said he wanted to be anything to do with the deal or her, and he was going to leave town without her. Freneau panicked. She knew the devil was being created, and she knew that the devil in red, I knew she cheated. And now, her only chance to escape was gone. In a fit of rage, she grabbed the dinner napkin and began clicking, wrapping around and choking Cancienne. Something sharp, perhaps, the napkin ring, nicked Cancienne's jugular, and blood spewed across the finely set table. In moments, Cancienne was dead, leaving Freneau in a bloodbath. Freneau desperately sought to clean up the crime scene, but it was to no use. Then, to her shock, Satan walked through the door. The devil looked over the stained dinner table. His bloody wife, and the still oozing corpse. He decided it was time to finish Freneau, once and for all. And what is the devil's punishment for cheating? Well, eating her, of course. The devil took Freneau and Cancienne's bodies up to the upper balcony and feasted it on their innards. When he was done, he threw the mangled skin into the alley behind the home. Then he decided to wash his hands of New Orleans and abandoned his home, never to return. After years of falling apart, someone finally assumed the ownership of the once beautiful manor at 1319 St. Charles Avenue. Yet the owner wouldn't last long before moving out. Because of ghostly dance and dinner parties that would take place every day and night. At sunset, the dining room would transform, with the devil's large dining table taking it a place once again that stood abroad. Freneau's spirit was then said to murder Cancienne, and her ghost would walk around the home and leave bloody handprints on the windows. This wasn't at all the ghost did. This isn't all what the ghost did either. The internet staff would even smell smoke throughout the home, even when the fireplaces were not lit. You'd also hear the door's handles being jingled when no one is around. Many homeowners tried to tame the ghost, but none could. It wasn't until the home was demolished in the 1930s that the spirits seemed to appear. Today, a hotel stands on the site of the former mansion, and the staff reports that no ghosts have either reenacted any murders on the new property. When Charles and his new bride, Marie, moved into the mansion, they too experienced the macabre tableau in the dining room, the ghostly arguments, and the otherworldly scenarios, screams, the bloody figure of Madeline wiping her hands on the linens. But they weren't driven away like the previous tenants, accepting the ghost and the ghoulish but quiet housemates. For the next 2 decades, Charles documented the nightly events, continuing to do so even after Laura died. In childbirth at Independence Day, 1884, at the age of 34, and around 1909, he left the Devil's Mansion. In the ensuing years, passersby reported seeing their leering, bloody ties, face of the devil, imprinted high up on the mansion's facade. For the facade of the Devil's Mansion was finally torn down in the summer of 1930. Today, a hotel stands at 1319 St. Charles Avenue, whereas the curse was afflicting the Devil's Mansion appears to have disappeared. At the building itself, there has been apart reports of any hauntings in the hotel's staff. The devil moved back to New Orleans, and as far as we know, although he is suspected to have briefly visited, now we shall see, and many of the beautiful things that left in the wake on St. Charles Avenue. I'd like to thank HauntedNola.com, VeryLocal.com, NewOrleansGhostTour.com, and research for making this episode. I'm your host, Ryan McKern. Thank you so much for listening. And until we meet again, for another story of New Orleans. Till we meet again, for another story of New Orleans. Ghost Histories. Au revoir.